You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, it's Doug. Welcome back to the Doug Collins Podcast. Thanks for last week. A lot of good encores last weweek. I was on the road. Most of you, I got a lot of text messages, folks who saw me. I was doing a lot of media last week, of course, with everything going on in the world. We had a lot going on, and James, always great. We put together some encores last week. Glad that you tuned in. Glad you're back with us, though. For the rest of the summer and for the next little while, we're going to be having some good time together. We're going to talk today. Just a few minutes after the break, we're going to come back, and I'm going to lay out the Durham investigation. I'm going to lay it out, and I watched a TV and cover some of the shows over the last week or so, and I hear so many people who are so disappointed in the Republican members of Congress that they haven't impeached somebody. Well, folks, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about it here in a few minutes. Impeachment is something that is needed and useful when needed. And I think what we've got to do here is to differentiate the idea of just simple revenge and the idea of simply that we have something. And I believe we do if played properly, but you got to give it some patience. So look, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit and go forward with, I just want to lay out what Congress can and can't do. Because I hear all the time, why is Congress not doing X? Well, today on the podcast, you're going to hear out why this is true and why you need to adjust your expectations and all the things we're going through. But also over the past week, I mean, we went through, this issue with this mini submersible that went down to the Titanic. That just so much disturbing stuff about that. I mean, and this is not surprising. Maybe this is be another episode of the podcast. It was not surprising for me to find out that our Navy intelligence knew that this thing imploded basically when the minute it imploded. The listening devices, especially in that part of the North Atlantic, is tremendous in our intelligence capabilities and gathering capabilities. So it was not surprising to me that they knew. What's surprising to me is why the reaction from the Coast Guard and the reaction from the rest of the world was as it was, and there was not more tamping down of the possibility that this was not a search and rescue, but a recovery mission from the start. Again, I think we've got, and it just to me, and I know this may sound interesting, but here just for a moment, just say this, in so much, this just feeds the fire of people's mistrust of what's going on in the government and what they tell us and don't tell us. So again, you have all of that been going on. You have the Hunter Biden stuff, which we're going to talk about some this morning. And it just keeps getting worse. So lots going on, but I also want to let you know that in the coming weeks, and this week we're going to start it off, is I'm going to do a series, and I'm going to do some of them myself, but I'm also going to bring in some guests, some familiar guests to some of you, maybe new to others, and we're going to talk about a list that I found that talks about I have learned that. So be ready for this summer. Just these quotes and these issues that start with I have learned that. And I think you're going to get a big kick out of it. And maybe over time, you'll go to the DougCollinsPodcast.com, go to the email button, hit that email button, and send me an email. May you have one that you want us to do, or maybe one you want to think about. I've learned that in life. Short sayings that will get us a long way down the line to understanding this life that we journey together. We're going to have a lot of good friends coming in. Matt Whitaker, Kevin Walling, Michelle Tafoya. We're going to have others coming in, and some that some that are new, and just having some fun discussions, not only about interesting things that are going on in the world, but also these kind of life lessons as we go forward. Also, July is just around the corner, which means football training camps are getting ready to open up. For those who live for this time of the year, we're going to have Coach Chan Gailey back on. We're going to get some insights into the coming year. We're going to get ready for football. So just now that summer is officially upon us, and for those of you, some of you, such as our folks in Texas who are just baking in the heat, now's the time to cool off with the Doug Collins podcast. So grab you something, sit back, or wherever you may be, get ready. The podcast is next. Hey, everybody, you know about Legacy Precious Metals. Legacy Precious Metals, you hear from them. We talk once a month. We talk about Legacy Precious Metals, talking about precious metals being part of your portfolio, how they're your navigator. Well, now they're not only navigating in a new way, they're actually giving you a new way to buy gold and silver. In fact, Legacy Precious Metals has developed a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in real gold and silver online. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped to your door. I'm more of a ship to my door kind of person. I enjoy having them with me, but they can do it either way, and you can now do it online. It gives you real access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time, anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar. This puts you in complete control of your money. This platform is free to sign up for. Just visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and is against a volatile stock market. A true diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but a different asset class. This platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Remember, do as I have done. Go to legacypminvestments.com and get started today. And now you've got a new tool to help you along in your investments. Hey folks, MyPillow is excited to bring to you their biggest bedding sale ever. For a limited time, you're going to get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98, and rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. $99.99. Get a mattress pillow topper. Look, they come in all sizes. They got all kinds of stuff, blankets. They've got duvets. They got quilts. They got comforters. They got body pillows. They got bolster pillows. They got all that big discounts. And also, they're extending their money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1, 2023, making them the perfect gift for your friends, your family, and for everyone you know. Folks, and just from a personal note here, I have the Giza Dream sheets. They're on my bed right now. I slept on them last night. Some of the best sheets that we and Lisa and I have ever owned. They are worth, at this price, they're a steal. My wife and I have bought bed sheets, linens at much higher cost. It's supposedly much higher quality. These from MyPillow are at the highest of quality, and at a price like this, you can't beat it. So go now to mypillow.com, use promo code Collins, COLLINS, or call 1-800-986-3994, and you'll get huge discounts on all the MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, and get all your shopping done while qualities last. And remember, put in that promo code Collins for these discounts. Okay. I said it in the introduction, and I want to go over this a little bit. Let's take these aspects in several functions here. Number one being that the Durham Report, I'm going to just state up front, was very much of a disappointment for those of us who have dealt with this issue for the last almost 7 years. To me, it is hard to understand how you can come out with a report that, I've heard this done in mainstream media. I've heard it, in other media. It says a scathing report holding the FBI accountable for the Operation Crossfire Hurricane and everything else that is been coming up. All these things that have been, going on. And at the end of the day, the truth and reality is, if you found that much wrongdoing, whether it be policy, in my opinion, the law, FISA issues, FISA court lying, those kind of things, then why was it you had basically nobody held accountable? One person for lying. That's it. Why did you not interview, as it's been reported, Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe, these others who were very critical to the very start of this investigation? Why were they never put under oath? Why were they never asked questions? These are the kind of issues that take a report that so many of us was hoping to, no matter how it came down, to get to the bottom of how Operation Crossfire Hurricane actually started. I wrote a book about this. It was part of it. I talked about it in the book about impeachment, that this starting back came out of the Hillary Clinton campaign to divert attention away from the Hillary Clinton email scandals, which, by the way, it's really interesting now how you're looking at all no matter what side, is going on with this, the Donald Trump indictments. Hillary Clinton was given her whole email. They were allowed, her and her attorney, to decide what they kept and what they didn't keep. And they erased so many, they actually destroyed cell phones with hammers. Okay, so folks, yeah, if you're still so blinded to not see that at least in some of these cases, the duality of justice, then I can't help you. I really can't. And I don't think anybody can. You have just made a determination that there's a problem. Now, on the flip side, you say, well, what about these, Trump case? The Trump case is going to get litigated as opposed to a Hillary Clinton case or, some of these other cases with the Bidens and others that don't appear to be litigated. So let's draw a quick distinction there before you raise the red flag on. You're always talking about Hillary Clinton, all this stuff. Well, what and Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and George Bush and Mike Pence. Well, okay, look, here's the big deal. None of those have been litigated. They were just summarily either dismissed or not even investigated. That's a problem. At the end of the day, one way or the other, whether you like Donald Trump, dislike Donald Trump, or whatever, these cases have been indicted. These cases are going to trial at some point. There will be a litigation to them. And when you have that, there is at least a modicum of what we'll call accountability. Now, I think the cases are going to have a hard time. I think there's a lot of issues with the cases. I think the way that they've been handled is a lot of problems. And I think the Trump legal team is probably getting ready to unleash, especially in this documents case, a barrage of pretrial motions and others that may get granted. So we'll just have to see. But you can't deny that in our country right now, how is it that when you put these issues up for polling, that 50 to 60% of the American people are believing the Department of Justice is politicized, that these charges are politicized? That leads to a distrust. It leads to a tearing down of our system. It leads to something that really, frankly, and I think all of us can agree, is not good for America. And if it's not good for America, then where is it leading us to? So let me go back on something here with the Durham Report. John Durham testified last week before Congress. Did not surprise me, his testimony. He stuck pretty much to his report. He didn't go in detail of anything much outside the report. He did confirm that there was no collusion. He confirmed that the dossier was fake. He confirmed, just stuff that we had been saying in Congress. Again, for me, it was like, well, that was saying something like reading from a history book. We've been saying this from these same hearing rooms for months and years even. What did disturb me is, again, as I said a few minutes ago, what was not done, not held accountable, no indictments of major players, no interviews of major players, no, how can you say, and this is a question I'll have for the audience here, and I'd love to hear your answer. You can follow me at Rep Doug Collins on Twitter. You can go to Doug Collins GA on Instagram, wherever you want to. If you want to, instant me message, DM me, whatever, go right ahead. But how do you feel in a report that was supposed to deal with a fake dossier, an investigation that started, and you don't really question the people involved in it? I don't think you can in many ways, have closure to something, the issues going on. I don't think you can actually have closure in these reports if you don't have a full picture of the reports. Now, one of the things that was again confirmed again, that the Obama administration knew of the Clintons' plan to hatch this Russian collusion case to deflect attention away from her own issues in her own campaign. These are things that have been documented, and now we're again being confirmed. We're seeing that there was political agenda and political bias when you have the text messages between Strzok and Peter Strzok that he sent, saying, look, don't worry, as president, is Trump going to be elected? No, we have an insurance policy. We're going to stop him, and Lisa Page. I mean, these are back and forth that we see this. Well, why would they even say that? Well, they were operating on this idea that they had these documents, these made up documents, however you want to classify them now, just totally false is the best way to classify. But they were using them to what they thought was derail the Trump campaign. Now, think about this, folks. This was the 2016 campaign. This was a campaign in which you had the FBI and the intelligence community, 51 intelligence officials saying that the Hunter laptop was disinformation coming into the 2020 election. Back in the 2016 election, you had, the discussion of a dossier and these Trump collusion, and you had, all these things going on, all designed to affect an election. Now, this is the deeper part and concerning part of this whole ugly episode. But when you get to the furtherance of this report, where it really holds no one truly accountable, but except sort of scolds, if you would, is the best way to put it. DOJ saying you need to do better, you shouldn't have done this, but yet if you don't do anything that shows this is wrong, hold somebody accountable, fire them. I know there's been, people who've left the Bureau, there's been others, but at the end of the day, we're still seeing concerning notes when it gets to other investigations now of parents at school board meetings, the pro-life activists being targeted for prayer outside of abortion clinics, these kind of things, where these are the resources of the federal government being used against you. And if we know that there is politicization under a Garland DOJ, if we saw politicization under what was a Obama DOJ that then turned into a Trump DOJ that seemingly from Sessions on couldn't get straight here, then you got a problem. And people are just losing more and more trust in the fact that the DOJ will ever be held accountable. I lay all that foundation and groundwork on this because, if you want to go read the report, go read the Durham Report. I'm not going to go detail by detail. We've talked about it on this podcast before. I've written a book about it. I've talked about it. The issues around the investigations opened up into Donald Trump on the false premise, the use of FISA courts. By the way, if you don't understand the FISA courts, you need to understand those are the secret courts. They meet in secret. You do not know they're meeting. The other sides are not represented. They go to get secret warrants that you don't even know about. And they're supposed to be on foreign intelligence sources. This came out of for the years that allows our intelligence community and law enforcement actually to keep us safe. But when they're bringing knowingly false documents to the FISA court, Jim Comey signing off on them, by the way, and others, that they continue to reactivate these warrants and subpoenas, then this is a problem. And if they can lie to a court, and the court itself should really be holding some of this accountable as well, because they've acknowledged that they got suckered, if you would, by these false applications. They've got to hold FBI accountable. We got this year in the FISA Reauthorization Act is coming up. You got Section 702. All these units that we use for supposedly for surveillance on terrorism and keeping us safe. All that's up for reauthorization. And if we don't go ahead and put some stuff in that we had talked about a few years ago, but got derailed a little bit, some more protections placed in there for citizens' rights and others, especially before the FISA court, then we're just asking for this court system to be abused, because the FBI undoubtedly has shown that they're not willing to tell the truth. They're willing to do whatever they can to get what they want. Now, these are the ones that we've really known about. They've been the high-profile cases, George Papadopoulos and others, Carter Page, that we know about. My question is, if these are the ones we know about, what have they done with ones that we don't know about? Again, this needed to be investigated, needed to be held responsible. Unfortunately, Durham fell short in that. I now want to take us and turn a little bit on the reason of some of the reason for this podcast today. And that is, I have give interview after interview after interview, talking about the Durham investigation, talking about the investigation in general, talking about why is Congress doing these investigations, but nobody's being held accountable. Let's go back and look. I'm going to say a truth and, truth versus fiction kind of scenario here. The first thing that I hear often is the implication that Congress can lock somebody up. Well, number one, that's not true. Okay, they're not a prosecutor. James Comer, Jim Jordan, Mark Green, any of them from the Homeland Security, Judiciary Committee, Oversight Committee, others, they can issue subpoenas. They can hold people in contempt of Congress. But at the end of the day, it is the Department of Justice that must enforce those. Now, this has become a rub for many of us when we see that I was a part of holding Eric Holder in contempt. I was a part of holding others in contempt. But yet when you see the fact that they go over to the Department of Justice and nothing is done with them, then you realize that Congress, frankly, can only jump up and down, scream, and yell about it, because that's the way the founders set it up. So any of you out there, especially some that I've seen portraying themselves as constitutional conservatives, however you want to call it, and yet you're saying, well, Congress has the ability. No, they don't. They do not have they don't have the prosecutorial part. That is something they don't have. Now, Can they impeach? Yes, we'll get to that one in a minute, but let's stay right here for a second. So if they lie, shouldn't they be held accountable? Yes. But also Congress has to go through a process and say, look, we refer you to the DOJ for perjury. We feel like you perjured yourself in this testimony. And again, DOJ has to take it up. The interesting thing is that over the past number of years, many, many years, the only real cases the Department of Justice has actually taken up from a referral from Congress for either contempt of Congress or anything else was just in the last year and a half from the January 6th committee, in which they did Steve Bannon and Mark Meadows. Notice the pattern? No liberal point of view here. No folks that held out a false dossier, who held false information before the FISA court. No one such as Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, who just would simply lie about information that they did not have about these reports, just simply further a political agenda. None of this, again, they're being taken ready. But also the fact that nobody was being held accountable for what they did or not say. So for those of you out there who simply believe Congress can put somebody in jail, or Congress can do that, or Congress can do that, Congress is only limited to what it can get the votes for, and then also how much DOJ is willing to participate in this. So at some point in time, there needs to be some discussion on how do we change the law? How do we, make it a constitutional burden in which, Congress itself can force, because I don't know how you can get it anymore right now. The law says shall prosecute. Doesn't say may, doesn't say will, it says shall. So again, for all of you who are out there, all of you who are getting upset, all of you who are, saying, oh, we're not doing anything. I get your frustrations, but you also got to understand the limitations of that frustration. That Congress is only in a position to do so much without the prosecutorial arm of the Department of Justice. Now, let's take it into the second part. And I hear this one a lot. Let's impeach Joe Biden. Let's impeach whoever. I get it. And some of you have been saying impeach Joe Biden from before he ever stepped into office. Okay, has there been a lot of things that are coming up? Now you got the WhatsApp app, you got the text message where, again, Hunter Biden. There's been so much that needs to be investigated. But folks, I'm pointing you right back to where it needs to be investigated with actual subpoena power, the actual ability to lock you up on the spot. And that is the Department of Justice and FBI. Congress does not have that power. Without the FBI enforcement, they don't have that power. So for all of your frustration at Congress, and I get it, because you've been told we're going to do this, again, a mistake by many members of Congress telling you what they can do when they really can't. The Department of Justice is got to be exposed here, and the mainstream media will not expose it. That's why we're talking about it on a podcast like this. That's why I talk about it when I get interviewed. I always bring it up. Say, look, unless you hold the Department of Justice accountable for its inaction in these cases, then you're simply setting the stage for it to happen over and over and again. So let's get back to impeachment. Impeachment, the founding fathers were sorely afraid that impeachment would become a political device. I don't like what you did politically, so I'm going to impeach you. They were very afraid of that. What they were, I guess, would be rightfully surprised at, that it really never turned into that. And I think that is a good thing. As someone who sat through the sham impeachment of Donald Trump in 2019, had to sit there next to Jerry Nadler, had to go through that charade of Adam Schiff in the Star Chamber down below, taking all this information, only letting people ask questions of what they wanted to ask questions for, knowing all along he knew what he was doing, and then never having the guts enough to come before the impeachment committee and actually testify. Again, people of California, I don't care. Look, y'all maybe elect a Democrat, but you at least ought to elect one with a backbone out there. Adam Schiff has no backbone. He is nothing but a puppet, pretending to be a puppet, it appears, with the mainstream media to parrot whatever line they want to have, especially if it's against conservative, and especially if it's against Donald Trump. But when you don't have the ability or the wherewithal in your life to come before the committee and testify about the very report that your committee and intelligence wrote for the impeachment, you've lost me. You've lost the American people. You have no guts. You have no courage. And do not tell me it is leadership. And when you get censored by the House, as you did last week, you wear it as a badge of honor because of your leadership in the impeaching Donald Trump. You had no leadership, sir. You were only insulated into what you wanted to say. And when you wanted to say it, you did not come before a committee in which you had had Democrats and Republicans ask you questions. You did not lead, sir. And it's a shame and a tragedy that most people don't understand that. So impeachments. I have one stunning statement that many of you are not going to understand is you don't have I don't think you have 218 votes in the House right now. I just don't. I think there are so many people who there's several people in Congress who do not want to go down the impeachment route. They don't want to do it, whether it be Joe Biden, whether it be Mayorkas, or whether it be Merrick Garland. I think Merrick Garland is getting closer. I'll have to be honest with you. But let's understand impeachment. Impeachment is not a quick thing. I despise the fact that the Democrats have made this out in the last Congress to be something that you can do on the spur of the moment. Impeachments, if you go back to the Clinton impeachment, you go back to the investigation of Richard Nixon, these were years-long investigations that actually laid out a case, laid out a reason, built the momentum. And Nancy Pelosi, because of pressure from her base, couldn't do that. They rushed to a Ukrainian phone call. They rushed to the others to just simply say, we're going to do it without any input, without any hearings, basically of substance, where we dig into these questions. I get it. You want your revenge. You want to impeach Donald Trump, so we need to impeach somebody. I get it. And I have believed long that Mayorkas is primed for impeachment because he is actually not, in my mind, and I think in a honest assessment from any nonpartisan advisor would look at it and say he's not enforcing the law at our southern border, and he's lied about not enforcing our border. Joe Biden, there's more and more building up. I think James Comer on this banking information, now these new WhatsApp, these new messaging platforms that Jason Smith has come up with, chairman of Ways and Means, on why there's been looking like interference and what is happening in interference. You have a twofold problem. You have Joe Biden and what was he held. I mean, as Hunter Biden said, my dad is sitting right next to me and while he's talking to a Chinese businessman about money. And Biden forever has said he had no idea what his son was doing. That's just, becoming more and more, if authenticated, is not true. So, yes, I think there's a reason for them to actually be worried in the Biden administration White House now about getting an attorney and having to face this because there's going to be more and more issues. Merrick Garland, though, is the one at the DOJ. If these allegations of, quote, whistleblower allegations are true, then in his own, we're back to the same thing that Durham was supposedly investigating, the improper politicization of cases before the Department of Justice, especially in dealing with the Biden family. So as we look through these cases, as we look into these issues, I want you to understand Congress is a legislative body. It is not a majority fiat body when you take into account the Senate. So the House can pass impeachment resolutions, which, by the way, again, for some of you who are really upset why we hadn't done this, I don't think Kevin and them have the votes on some of it. I think it would be very difficult. I mean, we just saw this with the referral of the impeachment of Joe Biden back to the committee, and which that was the deal struck so that and the Republicans referred it. And again, that wasn't an impeachment vote or anything else. They're referring it back to committee. They can spin it however they want to spin it, but that's not the impeachment. They'll need to come back with more impeachment resolutions and then open and formally open that investigation. That'll be further down the line. But I think you've got many, and you saw that in the comments of Republicans who do not want to vote for an impeachment. Now, Democrats are very different in this. They got right in line. Every one of them, sang off the same song sheet, and they all voted for impeachment of Donald Trump, many of them knowing that this was a futile issue simply going into an election year because they hated Donald Trump as much as they did. Again, if you want to read all about that, go to The Clock in the Calendar by Doug Collins. You can get it on Amazon, bookstores, anywhere you get it. Go to The Clock in the Calendar, order the book, read what I said, and it's their obsession with Donald Trump. And I go in depth with the what happened in that first impeachment. They went along with it. This is where Republicans and Democrats, and I just have to be honest with you, are different. Democrats walk in a straight line, whatever their leadership tells them to do. Republicans who think differently and are and come to different conclusions, don't do that. So when you've only got a 4-vote majority, it's hard to make sure that you get everybody in line, especially on something as consequential as impeachment. Now, I'm not one to ever care about what the Senate would do for something the House did, but also you have to be very honest that there's no way that these will be followed through on in a democratically controlled Senate. Now, you can whine, gripe, moan, and complain and yell at Chuck Schumer and everybody else all you want to. It just ain't happening. Okay, they could end up, however they want to refer to the committee. They could wait on it. They could have the hearing later. They could do however, but they're never, in the end of the day, at this point in time, going to, barring more evidence not being found, especially against Joe Biden, you're just not going to entertain the fact of impeaching somebody in the Biden administration. It's just not going to happen. So some of this, I want you just to be a warning to you as you're listening. Maybe you're riding down the road, you're exercising, whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast. Just be as a warning. Accept what Congress can do and don't imply upon Congress what they say they can do if they can't. So, for instance, this is passed, the House has voted on several measures, and I've seen many of the House members come out and say, we've repealed X. No, you haven't. So like the gas stove ban, the pistol grip brace ban, these other things, in many of these, if it's only passed out of the House, you've not repealed it. You've passed a bill to get to that intention, but don't let people think that you've passed it as if it's a done deal. Know the limitation of Congress. Go back and read about the role of Congress and the House and the Senate and how a president has to sign it. Go back and read those things. Go back if you need to go to YouTube and look up how Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law. I don't care how you do it, but get yourself educated on what Congress can do and what Congress can't do, because it will lower the anticipation when somebody comes out and says, we're going to do X, and you look at it and say, well, that would require the Senate and the president to sign it. That's not going to happen right now. That's stuff that you need to be aware of, folks. So look, I wanted to come back on this as we're getting, deep into summer here. We got a lot coming up, but we're going to talk about in the coming weeks, especially with Congress, on issues like the National Defense Authorization Act, the Farm Bill, the FISA reauthorization. Still got the 12 appropriations bills between now and the end of the year, and they're already saying that the real deadline is January 1st. Let me tell you what that means. Here's code speak for what that means. That means that they're not going to do 12 budget deals before September 30th. You're going to get a continuing resolution come September 30th. They've already saying it. So look, lots to talk about on the Doug Collins podcast. Folks, I know some of you may be irritated with this podcast because you think, well, just impeach him. That's what we ought to do. Okay, I get it. You're mad. I get it. They impeached Donald Trump. They did it for the wrong reason. I get it. So you got to find the evidence, put it before the members, find a majority of Republicans who will vote for it, and then you can do it. And then be very realizing that when it goes to the Senate, that it will fall down because of a majority Senate, which is fine. Sometimes things need to be done. And of course, that's where it will end right there. We need to hold these agencies accountable, and you do so by the money. And I think that's the other issue that Republicans are going to have to deal with. They've got to deal with it in the budgetary process, not just this year, but if they get the majority back in the Senate, they've got to then begin to use the money to manipulate and get what they need out of the executive branch, which should be operating to implement the laws and enforce the laws, not make up what they're going to or not going to enforce. So welcome back. It's Monday. God bless you here on the Doug Collins podcast. We'll see you next time.